Good morning, BNI. Thank you for joining us for the Power of One webinar. My name is Jenni Nering. I'm the Executive Director for our SoCal BNI region, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our Power of One webinar. This webinar is specifically for members in how to get the most value, how to understand and decipher the Power of One report. I'll go over a number of slides to give you some examples and share with you the why, also how to understand the Power of One for our newer members that maybe this is your first exposure to it. And we'll absolutely have time for questions. So if I don't answer your questions as we go along, don't be shy. Feel free to go ahead and ask those. Couple quick housekeeping items. I do have all of our attendees on listen only mode. So if you have a question, I request that you please just type that in using the control panel of the webinar, and I will either answer those as we go along if it fits into the specific slide that we're talking about, or I will make sure that it gets covered by the end of our webinar today. In addition, I've included 2 handouts. Those are available for you to download right from the webinar control panel. One of the handouts gives you the steps for example, if you're not receiving the Power of One automatically to your email, this gives you the steps to take to help get that resolved and who to contact if it continues to be a challenge. And the second handout is the scoring formula. And that's really, I'll say, the code to decipher the Power of One. So those are both available for you. They are also available in the document section of BNI Connect. So you're welcome to access those at a later date as well. The Power of One is something that was introduced to our local SoCal BNI region in October of 2016, and we're seeing a lot of really great activity and participation, and many of our members are finding great value. But we know with anything that it's continuing to be a learning process, and we want to help our members get more value out of it. So the request was made to do this Power of One webinar just as a refresher and for our newer members, an introduction to what the report is and why it's something that we use in our region. Some of the most commonly asked questions that we receive: why is the emailed report called Member Traffic Lights, but we refer to it as the Power of One? The member traffic lights, or Power of One as we refer to it in our region, is actually not something that is provided by BNI headquarters. This is a separate system that Adam and I purchased to add value to our local BNI members here. And we refer to it as the Power of One. The international company that put this report together and that we purchased the system from, they call it traffic lights in their region, so that's just the default. But for all intents and purposes in our region, we do refer to it as the Power of One. We know that the entire culture, energy, and success of the chapter is dependent on each of us as individual members, what we bring in terms of energy and participation. And so the power of one individual member, the power of one individual referral, the power of one effective one-to-one meeting, all of those really play a major part in the success of the overall membership. Why doesn't the report reflect accurate numbers for me? So if you ever receive the Power of One and it looks as though some of your activity isn't reflecting on that report, the first thing to do is double check to make sure that the vice president has actually entered the PALMS report and submitted it. Once the PALMS report the data is entered, the vice president actually they need to go in and remove it from draft mode into an official, they just click submit basically. And that's how all of the activity is generated on the Power of One, is directly from the PALMS report. So first step would be double check to make sure that the PALMS has been entered. If not, perhaps a friendly little reminder to the vice president that they need to get those PALMS entered. If it continues to be something that's a concern, maybe reaching out to your director to see if they can support you with that. But typically, the reason the numbers aren't going to be showing correctly is goes back to the PALMS report not being entered. There are many of the chapters that have moved to the online slips program. So if you're on the webinar today and your chapter uses the online slips where you're responsible for entering your own activity, make sure that you're getting that in every single week so that the vice president can submit the PALMS and it will reflect accurately. So if the vice president has entered the PALMS data, but it still isn't reflecting accurately, why would that be? Occasionally, there may be a delay if you're a new member. For example, perhaps your application hasn't been received by our office yet, so you've been submitting your activity during Stand and Deliver, but because the vice president hasn't sent in your application yet, they haven't been able to enter the PALM. So if you're a new member and you have not either received the Power of One yet, or perhaps you have received the most recent one and it doesn't reflect your past data, then as the next report is released, if it's still not accurate, then touch base with your vice president and make sure that they've entered all of your past activity. There's a little bit of catch up to do on their part if the newer members have not been added to the Connect system yet. In some instances, this is a rolling 6-month report, so it's important to keep that in mind. If the last vice president didn't enter the statistics correctly, then the data is not going to show accurate information. And once we roll through the rolling 6 months, if the current vice president is entering in all of the data correctly, then the numbers would be reflected correctly when they send out to each individual member on the Power of One report. When does the system pull the stats to generate the report each month? That's a question that we get almost daily. And the answer to that is that you will receive, as an individual member, the report on the 3rd business day of each month. However, the data is pulled on the final business day of each month at midnight. So that's one of the reasons why we encourage all of our vice presidents to make sure that they enter the data every single week by midnight of that Friday, so that it's anytime the Power of One is sent out, the most up-to-date, accurate information is then sent out to the members. When will you receive the Power of One? As a member, you receive that on the 3rd business day of each month. Please keep in mind that it doesn't mean that you receive it on the 3rd of each month. It's the 3rd business day of each month. What if I didn't receive the report? So that's one of the handouts that I've uploaded for you. Feel free to go ahead and download that. It's something, especially if you're a mentor participating on this webinar or someone on the membership committee, this may be a question that you get. So this handout would be something that you may want to keep in your back pocket so that you're able to assist members if they're having a difficult time receiving the report. It's normally an error with their spam filter, or occasionally they've provided us with an email address on their application that doesn't allow these types of emails to come through. So we may have to adjust their email address in BNI Connect. Sometimes people have really difficult handwriting to decipher, so maybe the email address isn't correct, but the steps are right there in that handout for you if you're not receiving the Power of One report. So what you'll see up here on the screen now is an example of the chapter's Power of One report. You'll see that it's, I've blurred out the names, as that's not really as important as what the different numbers mean and what the colors mean. Obviously, the goal is to be as visible and active as you can. We know that activity is what drives the results, not only in BNI, but in our individual businesses as well. And we want to make sure that our members are getting value through their activity. So we use this report in a few different ways. Number one is to make sure that we're being active enough. And then secondly, if we are being active and as an individual member, we're not receiving the value, then we need to look at how we are participating in those activities. Are we really using our time effectively? And where I see a lot of members kind of fall into this trap is with their one-to-one time. they're doing a lot of one-to-one activity and they're receiving full point value on the power of one for their one-to-one activity, but they're not seeing the results. So in that instance, if you're a mentor on this webinar, a membership committee, an individual member that's maybe feeling this, great recommendation is to go through the effective one-to-one workshop, sit down with your chapter mentor and evaluate the way that you're participating in your one-to-ones, making sure that you're coming prepared, that you've got an agenda. Also, strategically look at who you're having your one-to-ones with. It's not about, submitting a slip and receiving points. It's about receiving value. And one-to-ones can suck up a lot of time. So it's really important to make sure that you're managing that and that you're using that time effectively. We've got a question. How do I access the download that you've referenced? On the control panel of the webinar, there are 2 handouts that I uploaded into the webinar system. You can pull them right directly from that control panel and download them. They're also available in the document section of BNI Connect. If you still have a difficult time either accessing them through the webinar or through BNI Connect, if you shoot me an email, I'd be happy to forward them to you as soon as the webinar is concluded today. So the main things that we're looking at in terms of activity are attendance, showing up, participating, being visible in a positive way, of course, referral activity, one-to-ones, visitors, and trainings, continuing education units. On this report, you will see that thank you for closed business is tracked and reported. However, it is not part of your power of one score. Thank you for closed business is a result of the activity, and what we want to have reflected on the power of one are things that you as an individual member have direct control over, and you don't always have control over members reporting the thank you for closed business. And so this is really an individual report, things that you have control over as an individual member, your participation. You'll see over to the right, there's a number, for example, on this first member listed here, 95. The maximum number of points available on the power of one is 100. So this member here has 95 points. The arrow to the right shows if they've moved up or down or stayed the same on the power of one since the previous month's report. So if you were to look at number 18 here, you would see that they have 75% attendance. They're in the yellow for attendance, so there's some area of opportunity there for them to send substitutes or make sure that they're showing up to the meeting personally. There's some area for opportunity here for referrals. So they're receiving full point value for their one-to-ones. You'll see that they're in the green. They're doing on average more than 2 one-to-ones a week, but they have no referral activity. So this may be an instance where maybe they're a newer member and they're still in the process of building those relationships. Or they may be an existing, a more seasoned member that's spending a lot of time in one-to-ones and not maybe spending that time effectively. So we would want the mentors to reach out and see how they could help this member to use those one-to-ones to generate more referral activity. And then also there's some area of opportunity for them to bring visitors. They haven't received any points for visitors. So in a rolling 6-month time frame, this particular member has brought 0 visitors to the chapter. They've also participated in 0 continuing ed units. No thank you for closed business. They've received 30 points out of a total of 100, and they've moved down 10 points. So this definitely, as a mentor, as membership committee members, this would be a really great opportunity to reach out to this member to see how we can help to support them. I would be concerned that their engagement is decreasing since obviously their activity has gone down. It really would appear that the only way they're participating right now is through one-to-ones. They are showing up, but only about 75% of the time. We want to help to retain that member and help them to receive value. being proactive and communicating with them about their activity would be really important. Remember, if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in throughout the webinar, and I will address them as we go along or save them till the end if it's better suited for that time. Now, I hear this regularly. I did not know that I could click on the Power of One and see my own personal roadmap. So each month, as the Power of One is sent out to the members, when you click on your individual name or any of the members' names, it will open up your personal Power of One report. This shows you where you currently are and what activity you could participate in to help you move up on the Power of One report. So if we were to click on this, I'm actually going to show you an example of that in just a moment. But I wanted to also share with our members that are participating today just a quick overview of a few of the other reports that get sent to the leadership team and director every month. So you see the additional resources that are available through the leadership team and directors. We do recommend that the leadership team shares these during the monthly leadership team meetings, just to give an overview of the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and the notable networkers. So these reports get sent monthly just to president, vice president, and secretary treasurer of each chapter, and in addition, the chapter director. So if you're on the webinar today and this isn't something you've seen before, it's probably because you're on the support team and it's not getting automatically sent to you. But if it's of interest to you, I encourage you, reach out to your leadership team and ask if this is something that they will share during the monthly webinar, or excuse me, during the monthly leadership team meeting. It gives an overview of, for example, this particular chapter, a little over 8.5% of the members are in the gray on their Power of One. They've got about 34% of their members in the green, which is great. We want to see more of, the gray, red, and yellows moving up to the green, but it gives you an overview and also highlights the notable networkers for the month. Your chapter leadership team is also receiving the monthly chapter performance report. This is a 2-page report sent to the leadership team and director on the 3rd business day of each month, and it really gives an overview of the past 6 months. This is also a 6-month rolling report, and it breaks it down by, I know it's a little hard to see on the screen here because the print's pretty fine. However, it gives you an overview of some trends. So you can do a little bit more planning where you see a lot of renewals coming up. You would want to get the mentors involved a little earlier on in the process to help retain more of those upcoming renewals. If you see that there's a big drop in visitors during certain months of the year, maybe we want to plan a visitors day around that time because historically the chapter doesn't have a lot of visitors during a certain time of year. Or maybe you see that around leadership team transition, people are distracted with selecting the leadership teams. Maybe we want to plan some activities to really keep engagement high during those times of the year. So this report goes to the leadership team once a month, really to help them with their big picture planning, looking, the next 6 months, the past 6 months, and how they can help to add more value to the members. In addition, on a weekly basis, the leadership team receives the weekly chapter alert report. We strongly encourage the leadership team to share this with the mentors, to be really proactive in working with their mentees. This gives the overview of members that are struggling with attendance, referrals, education, and visitors. So the things that we're tracking and looking, for activity on are the same things that your leadership team is notified about each and every week if there's an upcoming red flag, for example. And these reports are all provided with an intent of being more proactive and providing our members with support. So if we're using this report as a reactive mechanism, it could be received really in a negative way. It's important that we're looking at these reports regularly and asking our members how we can help them. They may not recognize, especially if they're a newer member, how important it is to have a substitute or how to go about getting a substitute. It could be simply that a member doesn't clearly understand how to report their activity using either the online slips or the paper slips within their chapters. So oftentimes we find it's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding, and once the mentor reaches out to them, they're able to get them right back on track so that they can be participating in an active and positive way within the chapter. So in a nutshell, in a summary, the power of one is about showing up to your weekly meetings. The goal is 95% attendance. Of course, we'd really love for you to be there 100% of the time, but we know life happens. So as long as you are there 95% of the time, you receive maximum point value for attendance on the power of one. And the maximum point value for attendance is 20 points. We're looking for a referral activity. As a referral organization, of course, it's important to make sure that we're always looking to pass high quality referrals to our fellow chapter members, and that we're focused on that referral activity. We wouldn't be a very successful referral organization if our members weren't sharing referrals with each other. And the goal there for Power of One is to bring one qualified referral per week. And this is, as I mentioned, a rolling 6-month report. So there may be times in your membership where you bring 2 or 3 referrals in a week, and then maybe the next week you don't have a referral. That's all taken into consideration. So we're looking for one referral on average per week. And keeping in mind that these really should be referrals. We're not looking for leads or just business cards that you ran across. We want these to be high quality referrals, which will help you to build even greater visibility and credibility with the members in your chapter. In order to receive maximum point value for the visitor category on Power of One, we're looking for members to bring 1 visitor a month. And this is a qualified visitor, so we're not looking for you to bring a member of another chapter or someone that's been there multiple times over and over again. Really looking to bring those qualified visitors that can add value, maybe inviting for the speaker or bringing a referral partner for one of your fellow chapter members. Helping to build out your own power team by bringing those potential power partners to the chapter meeting to observe and participate as a visitor. 1 a month, and you receive maximum point value for the visitor category. Now, when it comes to one-to-ones, we're encouraging members to participate in one-to-one a week to receive maximum point value on Power of One. Once again, there's a maximum of 20 points available for each of these categories. When we get to continuing ed units, sometimes this gets a little tricky and our members aren't quite sure exactly what that means by one continuing ed unit per week. This doesn't mean 1 training per week. Some of our workshops are worth 5 points. Some of the webinars, for example, are worth multiple points. So, for example, you participating in this webinar, this would fulfill your continuing education units for more than just 1 week. Attending Chapter Success Forum is worth multiple points as well. So, for example, if you're looking at the continuing education slip, which is the golden rod slip, participating in a podcast, you do 5 podcasts, that gives you 1 CEU. So if you listen to 5 podcasts in a week, that would cover your continuing education units for that week. However, if you attend Member Success Program, that is worth 2 continuing ed units. So that would cover your continuing ed units for 2 weeks on the Power of One. If you attend Chapter Success Forum or meet with your mentor, that goes under the other BNI endorsed networking workshops, and that's worth 5 continuing ed points. So that would take care of all your CEUs for an entire month, and you would receive maximum point value for Power of One. Now let's go ahead and move along to the method for assigning the scores. This is one of the handouts that I've made available for you to download on the Power of One, or excuse me, on the webinar control panel. So feel free to go ahead and download that so you have it for future reference. This is a great resource for the mentors to have and be familiar with. So as they're meeting with their mentees, they're able to help them understand the power of one and how the scores are assigned. It's also really important to continue to reinforce that this is not a ranking system. This is really an individual report for you to do self-reflection, to make sure that you as an individual member are active enough in your chapter, that you're bringing value, and that if you're participating and you're active but you're not receiving value, that you're reaching out for support so that we can help you to be even more effective in your activities within BNI. We don't want you to just be BNI busy, spending all of this time. We want your activity to be producing results for you in regards to bringing referrals for your fellow chapter members, in receiving referrals, thank you for closed business, meeting new contact referral partners, and that sort of thing. One of our participants is asking how many CEUs for this webinar. We tell our members that a webinar is, if it's about a 45-minute to an hour webinar, that is worth the same as what like 5 podcasts would be worth. So this would count as 1 CEU credit. When we do the shorter webinars, for example, the visitor day support webinars, those are only about 20 minutes. And so we would track those as we track 5 podcasts. 5 of those webinars would be worth 1 CEU. They're only about 20 minutes. Some of them are only 8 or 15 minutes. But this one here in particular, you can count this for 1 CEU and you'll receive your maximum point value for your Power of One this week. Great question. So let's go back to this worksheet here. This is the assigning scores. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory once you actually have the method and the formula in front of you. Many of our members don't realize that this is actually one of the pages of the Power of One each and every month. It comes as one of the, I think it depends on your chapter size. So if you're in a larger chapter, this may be page 3 of that Power of One report. If you're in a smaller chapter, it may be the 2nd page, but it is part of the Power of One every month. So let's look at a couple examples here. If you were to, let's kind of put on our mentor hat, or maybe even our individual member hat, and say that we were looking at the 2nd member listed here on the Power of One. Clearly, they're pretty active. I mean, they're in the green. They're right up there along the towards the top of the Power of One for this individual chapter. It looks like they do a great job of attending the meetings. They've got 98%, so they've received maximum point value there. Doing a really good job with bringing referrals. This means that on average, they're bringing about 1.5 referrals every week. So they've gone above and beyond there. Remember, to receive the full 20 points in the referral category, you need to bring 1 qualified referral a week. So even if this member wasn't able to bring a qualified referral next week, for example, they're still going to stay in the green because they've gone above and beyond in the past weeks. So keeping in mind that this is a rolling 6-month report. They are very active in their one-to-one activity, doing almost 3 one-to-ones a week. So, this doesn't mean, oh, mentors, you don't need to mentor or work with this member because they're in the green, they're towards the top, they're bringing referrals, they're having one-to-ones. We would want to make sure that these one-to-ones are effective and that they're not just able to bring referrals, but it's also helping them to generate referrals. So asking the questions, are you receiving value? Do you feel that the one-to-ones you're participating in are helping to educate the members on how to bring you up in conversations, what to look for, what to listen for, what your ideal referrals are? We don't want them to just be spending time. They really want to, generate some, not just generate activity, but generate results. It looks like they're doing pretty good in the visitor category, which is a little more activity here, they would receive full point value. They've received 15 points for visitors, so they're just under that one visitor per month. I'm still trying to envision what that 0.98 visitor looks like, what a half visitor looks like. So we would want to encourage a little more visitor activity here for them to receive that full point value. What this means is there was 1 month that they did not meet that minimum of 1 visitor expectation. Now, looking at the continuing ed category, this would just, if we're just looking at the numbers, just looking at this report, it appears that that's our biggest opportunity to help this individual member receive more value. And some of the opportunities could be meeting with their mentor. That gives them 5 continuing ed units, but it would also open up that door for the mentor to help to make sure that this individual member is receiving value. Just because we've got members in the green doesn't mean they don't need mentorship. In fact, sometimes I feel like we need to focus on them even more because they're giving a lot of their time, they're participating, they're active, and if they aren't receiving value, those members may not renew. We don't want to lose those great active members. So always making sure that we're making, we're checking in with them as well and seeing how we can help them and giving them opportunities to refine the activities so that they're receiving the value that they expect or want out of BNI. You'll see that they have been thanked for about $8,000 worth of thank you for closed business in the last 6 months. So it appears as though the referrals that they are giving are producing value. And keeping in mind, just looking at this, we don't know what category this individual's in. So perhaps their power team is made up of people that have lower price point products. So this $8,000 could be an incredible amount for who this person would typically refer to, or depending on their category and their contact sphere, their referral partners, it could be a really low amount. So as a mentor or as an individual member, as you look at this report, you'll know a little bit more of the history. This just helps to tell the story and to help a member kind of look in the mirror to see where the opportunities are for them to be more effective in their BNI experience. What's really exciting is that they've received 75 points and they've moved up on the power of 1. So they moved up by 5 points. So they've been paying more attention to their activity and their engagement. So that's something I would absolutely want to celebrate with this individual member. Now, the secret part of this report that's not really a secret, but a lot of people don't realize is even available, is that when you click on your own name, it pulls up your personal roadmap. So this is available for all members. So if you're a chapter mentor and you're on this webinar or membership committee, you have the opportunity to click on any of the members' names to see how you can help them, where you can make the biggest impact in brightening their future in BNI. So I'm going to click back 1 slide again. So if we were to click on member number 2 here, the second member listed on the report, this is what would pull up for them. It shows that they're in the green. They've received 75 points out of a total of 100. So they're doing a really good job, but there's always room for improvement, or not even necessarily improvement in the amount of activity, but in the quality of the activity. I'm sure none of you have ever heard before that BNI takes a lot of time. So we want to make sure that the time we're spending is really effective. If you're looking at this page here, you'll see that where the check mark is, that's where the member currently is in regards to their activity for referrals. So for example, this member in the past 6 months has passed 34 referrals. They're in the green. They've received maximum point value for the power of 1. That doesn't mean they should stop passing qualified referrals. It just means that this is an area where they're doing a really good job. So celebrate this success. Look to give notable networker certificates or recognition during the chapter meeting. Maybe this is someone that does a really great job passing qualified referrals, and we want to invite them to provide an education moment one week on how they are so successful in generating these referrals. If I was just going off this report alone, I would say that they seem to be pretty effective in their one-to-ones. They're definitely having a good number of one-to-ones, but they're also generating referrals. So we oftentimes see those numbers go hand in hand. So if you look at the one-to-one category, this shows that they've participated in 58 one-to-ones over the last 6 months, receiving full point value, putting them in the green for that individual category on the Power of One. Now, looking down a little further on this slide, we go to the visitor category. This member currently has had 5 visitors in the last 6 months. So they've received 15 points, putting them in the yellow. If they brought 0 visitors, they would stay in the yellow. If they brought just 1 more visitor, you'll see right here, this arrow indicates that that 1 more visitor would help to move them up to the full point maximum of 20 points under the visitor category, putting them in the green for visitors. So with just a little bit more activity there, they could have a really big impact. I think the biggest opportunity for this individual member is to really make sure that they're focusing on that lifelong learning. That's one of our BNI core values. There's so many learning opportunities available. And we also can't assume that this person isn't participating. Perhaps they're just not recording it. They might not even realize that that's something they should be recording. So mentors, membership committee, individual members, just making sure that you're asking, how can I help? How can I help you to get more value through the training offered in BNI? Making people aware when you're attending workshops and extending invitations for others to attend with you. We had one of our chapters actually last week, Coastal Business Alliance. They rented a bus, I'll say, but it's like a 15-passenger van, and they came together as a group to member success program. So they use that as a great opportunity to build camaraderie as a chapter, but also to continue to invest in their lifelong learning and invest in each other, really. So in order for this member to increase their score on the Power of One, to move towards the green in the chapter education units, they would just to get to the red, they would need to have participate in 3 continuing ed credits. So that could be attending chapter development training in September. That could be attending an advanced member success program workshop, for example, effective one-to-ones or building power teams. They could attend chapter success forum. That would give them 5 points. So don't think that that's 3 individual classes. It's actually the CEU credits, which would be the +3. That would move them to the red. If they did 19, which it's not 19 workshops, it's 19 points, that would help to move them to the green. As a reminder, we've had a couple people come onto the webinar after we did our initial housekeeping. If you have questions, please feel free. I encourage you to type those questions in. You're probably not the only one that has the questions, so don't be shy. Type your questions in the control panel of the webinar, and I will address those as we go along. If you also have a success story or a comment about the Power of One, something that you've experienced in your own chapter, I'd love for you to share that by typing it into the question panel so that I can help to share that message with the rest of our participants. We're going to look at one more example here. We're going to look at this Power of One, which will select member 6, so they're in the yellow. And if we're just looking at this page without clicking on the individual members' roadmap, we'll see that they're doing pretty good with attendance, 95%. So they've received full point value there. It would be important to make sure that, or continuing to educate on the why behind the importance of having a substitute and being visible and attending the weekly meetings. That should be an ongoing education opportunity for all members, really. It looks like they're meeting the expectation, the minimum of what we like to see for one-to-ones. They're a little low on their referrals. So making sure that these one-to-ones are effective, asking who they're meeting with, making sure they're meeting with those potential power partners, that they're coming prepared to those one-to-ones. They've got some really specific questions that they're coming to the table prepared to ask, so they're able to help generate those referrals. This individual member is doing far less than one referral per week. So we really want to help them to increase that activity, not by stuffing the basket with slips, but by bringing those high quality referrals. I do see that there's a question. So the question is, what would it take to get this person to the yellow and CEUs, not just to the green? So that was going back to the previous member that we were looking at. I'm going to go back a slide. So for this individual member to be to the yellow, they need to receive 15 points in the power of 1. So that would put them at, let me look here on the form. If we go back to the formula, I believe they would need to be at 15 continuing ed units. And that would put them in the yellow. So if you look at the formula, which is one of the handouts for assigning the score, it'll tell you exactly how much each member needs to participate in to be in the various, I'll say colors, yellow, green, red, or gray. So let's look here at member name anonymous, but they're listed as number 6 on the power of 1. There are some opportunities for this individual member to participate a little more in bringing visitors. They're not bringing at least one visitor per month. It looks like, in fact, when we click on this individual member's name, it'll show us exactly how many visitors they've brought in the last 6 months. There's some opportunity for some continuing ed focus. They're bringing, thank you for closed business. So it looks like the referrals that they are passing, although they're not bringing a lot of referrals, it looks like the referrals they're passing are turning into closed business. What I love is that this member has improved. They've either worked with their mentor or invested a little bit more time, put a little bit more focus, and they moved up 10 points since the previous month on the power of 1. So it definitely shows that they're committed to being active and participating within the chapter. I love this. So one of our participants shared a success story. They said, as a mentor team, our goal is to have no members in the red by the March report. Last month, we are on track to having almost all members either in the yellow or the green. It's still a work in progress. Thank you so much for sharing that success story. Those are the things that we love to hear at the regional office. And if you have any special ideas or strategies that the mentor team has really used to help inspire and encourage that type of activity, we'd love to hear that. It's also a great chapter success forum share. So if you're planning to attend one of the upcoming chapter success forums, don't keep this story a secret. Share that. That's really great. Thank you so much. And thank you for your support as a mentor to help your members get more value. Let's click on member 6 here and see how we could help them. This is their roadmap. It shows that they're in the yellow, receiving 55 points out of 100. Right here, the top line under referrals, this shows how many referrals they have brought. So they've brought 3 referrals in the past rolling 6 months. So there's definitely some room for improvement there. If we're looking for 1 referral a week, just to move to the red, they would need to increase that activity by 3. To move to the green, they would need to increase that activity by 19. Now, that would be a really big jump. And we don't want to overwhelm our members by having them think that we would expect them to go from 3 referrals to 19 in by next week or by the next Power of One report release. This is looking over what the activity would need to be over the next rolling 6 months. So if they continue to do what they're currently doing and they increase their activity by 19 referrals, that would move them to the green. So we have to be really careful to make sure that when we're meeting with members and encouraging their activity, that we're not setting the expectation that we expect them to all of a sudden come up with 19 referrals by next week or even next month. We understand that this is a process, and by focusing on more strategic and effective activity, really the results and the thank you for closed business, those are the results of really effective activity. So looking at, the one-to-ones, they're doing a good job with their one-to-ones, so we would want to make sure that those are effective one-to-ones. Also, their activity is in the visitor category can tell part of the story in regards to referrals. It's very hard to live out the giver's gain philosophy and make giver's gain work if you don't have the right people in your chapter to refer to. So as an individual member, it's really important for you to always be, paying attention to who you need in the chapter. In order for you to receive, you have to give. And if you don't have the people in the chapter that you need to give referrals to, it's very hard to exemplify giver's gain. So maybe one of the things we could do to help this individual member is to suggest that they focus on their inviting, bringing some visitors, some of the visitors that they feel have potential to be referral partners for them. As they focus on their visitor activity, if those visitors become members and they're potential power partners for them, the result could very easily be that they're able to pass more referrals. Once again, also there's some area for focus here on the education. And so if we're kind of looking to tie all this in, we see there's an opportunity for more visitors, opportunity for more referrals. So maybe we would recommend that they attend Inviting Simplified, and maybe building power teams, and focusing on those educational opportunities may give them the resources and the tools and the inspiration that they need to bring more visitors, which would then potentially help them to generate more referrals. So looking at making the suggestions that will have the biggest impact in their overall member experience is what I really encourage our mentors and membership committees to focus on. I don't recommend that we focus on all of these things at once, as we don't want to overwhelm our members, but really looking at this strategically, where if we make one suggestion, how that could have a domino effect or a ripple effect on all of the other categories for their Power of One activity. We're going to look here at one more example, and that would be looking at the member that's listed as number 14 on this Power of One. Now, what I love is that they've got 100% attendance. We're off to a good start. They're attending the weekly meetings. Where we need to see more engagement is with referrals and visitors and CEUs. There's a couple red flags for me on this report if I were this individual's mentor, and that would be that they're doing a lot of one-to-ones, on average 2.5 a week, and they're spending time. If they're spending this time and not generating the referrals, not generating thank you for closed business, we really need to reach out to this member and see how we can help them. They're attending the meeting, they're having one-to-one, so they're investing time. We want that time to reflect positive activity, positive results. So one of the really neat things about the Power of One report is when you click on your name and it pulls up the individual roadmap, you'll see on your own individual Power of One, when you pull up this screen, that there's a gearbox, almost like a wheel, a gear wheel. And it will tell you, if you click on those, it'll give you some recommendations, some ideas on how you can increase your activity in those specific categories based off of your Power of One. So it might give you ideas on how to bring more referrals, how to make your one-to-ones more effective, some of the workshops that you may want to consider attending or participating in to help you with your individual Power of One. So as we look at this member here, we see that They haven't brought any referrals yet. This could be a new member. However, the Power of One automatically calculates how many weeks they have actually been a member versus what their activity looks like. So they're not at a disadvantage because they may have been a member for a less amount of time. Where there may be a discrepancy is, as I mentioned previously in this webinar, if there's a member where the vice president maybe failed to mail in the application promptly, there may be some backlog in activity that the vice president needs to enter. So that might be something that the mentor looks into prior to sitting down with a mentee, or as an individual member, if you're looking at this report, you may want to follow up on that if you know that that's the case. Once the vice president enters that activity, it would be reflected on the next Power of One release. So you'll see there's some opportunity here for an increase in activity for referrals. They have done 10 one-to-ones in the last 6 months. So this would tell us, just looking at that alone, that this member's been a member for 10 weeks, because we are looking for one-to-one per week, and they've received maximum point value. So one of the participants asked, where is the gear? The gear is actually not showing up on this Power of One example that I've got up on the screen. It's a newer feature that was added to the system, and the gear is personalized based off of the individual Power of One. So when you click on your name and you see this report, there should be a gear, for example, under the visitor category, where if you click on that gear box, it'll pull up a window with recommendations on inviting strategies, or maybe some podcasts or SuccessNet articles that you could read or listen to help you in those specific categories. If you are still having a difficult time accessing the gears on your specific Power of One report, please reach out to me outside of the webinar through email. I'd be happy to assist in that area. We have a couple different regions participating in this webinar, and so it may be a regional function that hasn't been added to your Power of One report, and so I'd be happy to address that individually outside of the webinar if that's the case. It is time for questions now that we've reviewed the various reports. We've got a few more minutes left in this webinar. I'm happy to stay on for as long as you folks need. I want to make sure I get all of your questions answered, but I am done going through the various reports. If you're a leadership team member on this webinar and you think it would be helpful to dive a little deeper into some of the other reports that I mentioned that go specifically to leadership team members, please send me an email. I'd be happy to get those scheduled on the upcoming calendar for you to participate in. We've got a couple questions coming in. If you are having a difficult time accessing the downloads, please send an email to Jenni at SoCalBNI.com, and I'd be happy to forward you those specific downloads. Once again, if you're not seeing the gearbox, or I call it a gear, I don't know what else to call it. It could be a regional setting, so reach out to me individually, Jenni at SoCalBNI.com, and I will check that out for you. Another participant said that they've been finding great success as a mentor team, really using this as a conversation starter when they meet with their mentees. I'm so glad to hear that. I think one of the most valuable things that we can focus on as we're reviewing the Power of One is really the why. Why participating in these activities will help that individual member, why, it helps them to build visibility and credibility, and how it can help them, the value it brings to them. It's not a ranking system. It's really to look at your own personal activity. We know that as each member participates and takes ownership for their activity, if they're all focusing on one-to-one a week, one referral a week, one visitor a month, think of the success that brings to the overall membership within the chapter. Another one of our members says, thank you, this was very helpful. This tool is a great self-assessment tool. I agree. Not only just as a tool and resource for the mentors and membership committees, but for us as individual participants within BNI. Oh my goodness, I love this comment. I want to take a screenshot. This report is the best thing I've seen in my 6+ years in BNI. Our mentor team is actively working this report to help our members. I love it. This makes me so happy. Anytime we roll out new mechanisms, new tools or resources, there's always a learning curve, and we've just barely had a full year using this with our members, and we have seen so many success stories, and members telling us that they were spending a ton of time in BNI and feeling like they weren't getting the ROI, and just having this report for them to do that self-reflection to see where they could be using their time more effectively. It's great to hear that. All right, well, if there are no other questions, then we will get ready to sign out here. I really appreciate all of you joining us for our webinar today. I want to leave you with this quote. I went one screen too far. I think this is a good quote to wrap up the Power of One webinar. A coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear and has you see what you don't want to see so that you can be who you've always known you can be. So I hope that that quote continues to inspire you to use the Power of One as a resource, and not only for your own personal membership, but as you help to support the other members in your chapter. And once again, thank you so much for your support in BNI, for your leadership and your dedication. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and your future is bright in BNI. Make it a great day.